Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. I'm Steve Willis, co-founder of Hope Sheds Light. On behalf of my partners, Ron Rosetto and Arvo Prima, we welcome you to our Finding Hope for Life family support meetings. It's a joy to see everybody here. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to all of our Facebook friends who continue to view what we do and communicate with us. Thank you. For those of you who are new, let me introduce Hope Sheds Light. It's a family-focused nonprofit agency. Our mission is to raise awareness and to educate individuals, families, and the community about the impact of addiction by having the courage to share our personal experiences, by offering our wisdom and our strength, and by offering hope and resources that lead to the long-term recovery of the whole family. We want to remove, by doing what we do, we want to remove the fear and stigma that surrounds this disease by offering a safe and hopeful and loving environment that allows families to heal and brings wellness to the whole community. And we do that through this Finding Hope for meeting. This meeting meets on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month in the beautiful Holy Cross Lutheran Church. We have our Finding Recovery for Life weekly meeting, and that meets on the first and third Tuesday in our Hope office, which is at 253 Chestnut Street. That meeting, the Finding Recovery meeting, is a little different format. It's a group learning, a group sharing format, where we introduce topics that are designed to cultivate good recovery practices in the family. But all these meetings are open to anyone that's impacted by addiction. Our prayer is that by us sharing with you and you with us, you'll change the way you think and feel about substance misuse, about addiction, and therefore become healthy. The format tonight is, at our Finding Hope meeting, the first part is an educational piece. We're blessed to have very talented colleagues from the community and surrounding communities to share topics with us, to kind of teach about a topic relating to prevention, treatment, and recovery. That's about 45, 50 minutes that we break out into groups and we discuss what we've heard. Importantly, we talk about what we can do in order to take care of ourselves so that we're better able to move toward our own journey, toward full recovery, because we all have to recover. This is a family disease. It doesn't just affect our loved ones. We all get sick and we all need to learn how to recover and get healthy. So that's what we do, and we're blessed to have you here. It's really a blessing for us to be able to share the gifts and the love that we have, so thank you. So with that, I'll introduce our speaker tonight, Jesse Dariano. Did I say that right, Jesse?
Yeah, Dariano.
Dariano. He's from the John Brooks Recovery Center. It's a wonderful program down in Atlantic County. Jesse, we're grateful that you're here, and
Thank you.
here's Jesse.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think it's, I chuckled a little bit when he said that this is the educational piece, because I was not good at school, and I failed college like 3 times. But it's amazing what can happen when you stop using substances and show up for class and study, right? But I've been blessed along my journey to really be able to invest in myself and have people in my life to invest in me, to be able to have something to give back. So I hope what I share with you today really helps where you are, or it's something that you can carry on to somebody who needs it. So I'm a person in long-term recovery. What that means for me is that I haven't had a drink or a drug in over 6 years. It's been since January 13th, 2013. I'm not a first-time winner, as they say. 2005, July 7th, 2005 was the first time that I went into recovery. And what I mean by recovery is that I wasn't just trying to stop using substances, but I had a system of values, principles to live by, and a community of people around me helping bolster what it was I was trying to do, helping me live this pathway. And so I want to share a little bit about my story, because it really sheds light on how types of support and the lack of support affected me in my journey, and then I would like to be able to share maybe some resources or how people, whether you're in recovery or an ally of recovery, can support people that are either in recovery or an ally of recovery and are affected by addiction all over. Oh, did I mention I'm the peer community center coordinator? I always forget to introduce my titles. Doesn't matter though, right? So I started. Let me go back. Start before I even used substances, because really, like that's when it started, right? So I grew up in the church. What I mean by that I grew up in the church is that my parents made me go to church. I didn't really want to go to church, but this was what my community was doing. This is what my family was doing. My dad was kind of like the Ned Flanders of our neighborhood, right? Hi-ho neighbor, and I thought he was like a geek. He's this really nice guy talking to the neighbors, just super positive. And I'm like, I'm the Bart Simpson, constantly rebelling, wanting, shooting the slingshot kind of kid, always getting into trouble. And so from a young age, my supports, my community, was doing something that I didn't identify, or I didn't feel like I identified with. And so I kind of rebelled against the values they were trying to instill in me. And I appreciated church. Today, I have a higher power. I believe in God. I actually attend a church, but at the time I was completely against all of this. And the reason this is relevant is because I argued with the pastor left and right every time he spoke. I didn't want to receive anything from anybody, right? These are potential supports in my life that I'd say, no, I have everything on my own, I can do it on my own. And the reality that I felt like I was facing was that I couldn't ask questions, I couldn't challenge things, and so it felt like some of the struggles that I was having, that I definitely was not communicating well to the people around me, it felt like I wasn't allowed to ask those questions. I wasn't allowed to wrestle with some of these thoughts, some of these ideas, these fears. It felt like there was this kind of war inside of me that it wasn't being answered in that setting, right? It felt like there was this voice, something inside of me was searching outside of myself to help explain who I was, right? And I felt like I wasn't getting answers there. And so I just turned and went my own way. First time I used a substance, I was 14 years old. Ironically, it was at a church function. Creation is like Christian Woodstock, so the least likely place you'd find drugs. I mean, if it was Woodstock, you'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, 14-year-old is going to get in trouble. It was a Christian festival and drugs were still there. I think there's something in, the AA text that says even if you go to Alaska, an Eskimo will have a bottle of whiskey or something like that. It's true. It wasn't hard for me to get into trouble, but even when I wasn't looking for trouble, it was finding me. But here was the thing about that experience. I had really good friends. They weren't all these bad kids. You wouldn't look at them and think like, oh, they're troublemakers. They were just curious, right? And this was my community, right? These were the people supporting me through my life, my activities, my dreams. And so when one of my friends said, hey, would you like to try this? What does it do? It makes me feel good. I like that. I want to feel good. And it's kind of like one of those things where there's a common saying, you don't always know you have a toothache until you go to the dentist, right? So I didn't know that I was struggling with things, but when I took that pill, it felt like it wiped away this burn. This is where I hold my anxiety, like right here, this tension. I got a little fireball there right now. It felt like it melted it away, right? I was super insecure as a teenager, and I was goofy. I felt confident. There was a girl there that I liked, and I had the courage to talk to her. It did things for me that I couldn't do for myself. It gave me a kind of power, if you will, to get outside of myself, and that became very attractive. I felt invincible by it. Anything I wanted to pursue, I could do it. And at this point, leaving, kind of like not listening to my family, doing what I want, that was great because I don't need them now. I have this medicine that is helping me do whatever I want. I'm a one-man show. I'm a loner. I don't need support. I can do what I want. And that took me down. And this is kind of a common theme that other people face as well. That I was doing my own thing. Things weren't that bad. I had friends. My parents felt like they were the toughest thing that I had to face. And trying to get up the nerves to ask a girl out. These are the struggles of my life at this time. But living in this lifestyle, your friends change. People change. You tend to attract different type of people. And you begin to accept other things, other people into your life. And this is when some of my okay friends start turning to really bad friends. Some of them selling drugs, and then like, oh, I don't want to do that. But then I find that this being my community, it becomes normalized, right? And so the worse things got, being that it was in a community, it can become normalized. And so the reason I say this is because this is the conversation that I had with my mom when she says, but I just don't understand why you would do that. How could you get that far, that bad, that far away from how we raised you? And it wasn't like I just took this leap like that looks amazing, because it didn't look attractive. Where I ended up didn't seem attractive, and the people I began hanging around with, if you would have asked me a few years ago, I wouldn't have hung around them. But as the community shifts, and this is the power of community, is that there's such a yearning for socialization, someone to help me feel comfortable about who I am, to learn something from someone else. When that is the norm, that becomes very easy to follow. And even if there's questionable things, we're going to pursue it. There's a super popular study, although I'm like forgetting the name of it right now. It was like beaten into our heads at college. But the long and short of it is the study was about finding out why, how a human could do what was done by the Nazis. How could you take orders? How could you follow through with that? And so they kind of set up this study where there was like an authority figure. I think there was like another person there, and they just followed instructions. And even though that study couldn't be replicated, what we found though is people are significantly more inclined to do things that are completely against their value system when it's presented by an authority, or if there is a community of people who are accepting of it. And so this is how it was so easy for me to find myself way off track, right? You could call my friends a support system. They weren't necessarily supporting me, unless you want to say they were supporting my drug habits. But this is the power and the effect of community. And so I found myself doing things that I never thought I would do, right? Inside, I was like this nice kid, and I believed that there was still a nice kid in there, and he would definitely show up every time the cops came. I suddenly would dress up as this nice kid in my mind, and it would come out. And every now and then I would think back, like, I guess there is something still in me, right? But I began to change significantly, and without going into war stories, it took me down. Like, my mom couldn't handle it. I ended up getting kicked out of the house, living on my own. I couldn't hold a job. By the time I was 18, I was on my own, living with girlfriends and friends couldn't handle it anymore, and so I had a normal family, right? I had a good family. I'm one of four. My brother and my sisters didn't struggle the way I did, right? But here I am, like no home, way different friend group than the rest of my family, and how come I can't get this together? What happened to me? And so I do believe that there's a balance between your environment, some of the choices that I made, but also I've tested the waters of, do I really struggle with something? And I believe that there is a disease going on, because when I drink or when I use, and I've tested this several times, I can't stop. I want it, and like I said, in 2005, I went to AA and found recovery for the first time, and I changed so drastically that my mind told me, you're so different that you're technically a different person that would also be drinking. You're not the same dude that would be drinking. You got your stuff together. You're living a good life. You're not that loner. I'm like, you're absolutely right. Who is this guy? He is so smart. Should have been listening to him a long time ago. So I drank, and it was disastrous. I was out there for another 3 years before, I tried it again. But my sister never drank until she was like 21, which was unheard of for me. My brother will have a beer with his friends. He stopped partying altogether for college. My other sister didn't drink till she was 27, and she came to me and said, Jess, I just want to tell you, I had a drink, and I'm in recovery at this point. I had a drink for the first time, and I didn't like it at all. I don't support it. I was goofy. I couldn't stop laughing. I was so silly. I felt embarrassed to be laughing so hard at this table. I said, Nick, that's exactly why I drank. And that's it. That's why, that silliness, that feeling of losing control. But I tell that story just because it just shows kind of the difference between our personalities, and also the way she felt, the way I felt, right? And it wasn't like, I could just stop, like the whole Just Say No campaign, right? I lived the Just Say No campaign growing up in the church, like just say no to drugs, just say no to girls, no to cursing, no to stealing, no to everything. And just saying no doesn't seem to stop it, right? So I find myself in AA, and this is where I really understand supports, right? I thought I had to do everything in my own strength, my own power, this whole time, because I wasn't like anybody else. Nobody understands me. Nobody understands who I am, so how could anyone support me, help me? Until I heard some of these stories that people were sharing. Things that I was embarrassed about, I had a tremendous shame over. They were part of the punchline of what some of these guys were. I was at a men's meeting, some of these guys were sharing. And I didn't understand how they could talk about these crazy stories with like such humor, and unless they were so far removed from it that they didn't feel tied to it anymore. And I realized how tied I was to all of my crap, all of my junk, all those terrible decisions, the lifestyle I was living, the person I thought I was. Who am I if I'm not drinking? You guys don't look like the people you're describing. How do you become this new person? Because the thing was I got to a point, and this is a common thing that I see with newcomers all the time, is the struggle to drink or use isn't always, even though it can be, it isn't always, I just want to feel good, I want to get high, I want to get out of myself. For a lot of people, like myself, I was done. I reached a point where the party was over, I wasn't even getting an effect out of it. I I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know who I was without the substances. I started so young. It was my courage. It was my humor. It gave me everything that I thought I was. If I don't have this, there's no way I can talk to people. There's no way I can put myself in an uncomfortable situation, right? And so that was a big part of the struggle, is how do I cope? How do I find my identity? How do I find who I am? And so I needed to be shown, right? And the reality is it was like I was a child all over again, emotionally a child, and I needed to be shown in the same way a parent will show a child what you need to do. I needed to be taken by the hand and shown, like, this is how you talk to people. And we don't do that anymore. We try not to say those things, or we try to be true to our word. We try to follow through with things. These basic values to most were difficult for me. I was proud of myself for the way I broke up with a girl. Well, the way I was about to break up with a girl was I was just going to stop talking to her. And I had a relationship sponsor at the time because I knew I was terrible with relationships, and she was amazing. And I'm like, Kate, so this is what I'm going to do. I haven't been talking to her. I haven't texted her, and it's been going great. I think she's just going to get the hint. She's like, Jesse, that's awful. Like, you started something with somebody. If you don't want to follow through with it, if it's not working out, you need to talk to her, right? This is how confused I was, and these are the things in the beginning that I needed support with. Basic human interactions. My parents were supportive in the sense that they were okay. They wanted me to get clean, sober, whatever the language is that you use, stop using. They didn't understand it. They knew it was my thing. I think they would have been more involved if they could, if they knew what else to do. But at the time, I just don't think they had a lot of education on it. There wasn't a lot out there. It was a struggle in 2005 to find a rehab. So it's great that there's a lot out here now. But I need to distance myself from them, just because I didn't know how to communicate the struggle that was going on, how stressful it was to be looking back at some of my shame. I didn't know how to talk to my mom. I could feel that she wanted an apology. I knew that she deserved an apology. I wasn't there yet, and that's a common thing with families, is how do we get through some of the early rough stages of recovery and communicate where we are in a healthy, respectful way, and let them know that it's going to take time, right? And so whenever I talk to parents, I try to say give them space. Obviously, healthy boundaries. If there's anything that you feel you need to do while they're living under your roof, absolutely. But having some of that space, if they need it, is a huge thing for me. And so going through the process that I did, I found that my community helped me become this new person. And I saw this dichotomy in the same way that things were normalized with my friends. Like, oh, okay, that's how much we drink, that's how much we should use, that's how we talk to girls, that's how we talk to people that we don't like. I saw positive influences from people that were in recovery, right? I needed the same. I was like a baby duckling, right? Just like that imprint. I had to follow them around, right? And what it taught me in my life was that how we talk, how we communicate, how we interact with people, we're giving them something. We're communicating in some way. And so everything that I say and I do has an effect, a positive or a negative effect. And so, learning what to say, what not to say, can be like really helpful if I'm talking to somebody that I don't know everything that they're going through. And so I have about 3 years in recovery, and I'm about to go back to school, and I decide that this is what people do. They go, they take 4 classes, they have a job. I just mimicked, right? This is probably the first big mistake that I made, and didn't consult my support system. I just did what I thought I needed to do. I looked at what everybody else was doing, and I just tried following suit. I felt dumb around the people that were at school, and I thought that I should know more. And like, these are some of these weird little shame moments that end up dictating how I make decisions, or other people in recovery can end up making decisions. And I failed. I failed in recovery, and I failed when I was using. So I must not be for school. School's not for me. This was the conclusion that I came to, and I kept it to myself. I didn't talk about it. I would just tell people, school's not for me. It's for some people, but it's not for me. And so whenever I hear somebody say that, I like try to ask their story, like what happened. Well, yeah, I was working a full-time job. I took 4 classes, and didn't seem to work out. Right? I needed to be told, I needed to be shown how to do this, how to go back to school even. And so, fast forward, and I'm working at a job. Everything's going great. I have immense success in my life, my idea of success, and I don't feel like I need meetings anymore. I'm doing so well on my own that I can make a better decision than anybody else is doing. I'm following my own little program, my own little system, my values. I'm living the values. I'm doing what they told me to do, right? And this was the belief that, why can't I just continue? Why do I need to take all this time out and go to this place? Why do I need to talk to this guy every day, or like however often? And so I just was like, I'm not gonna go to that. I mean, there's a little too much drama at that meeting. I'm not gonna go to this one. I'm not gonna do that. And I found myself stepping away more and more. I would talk to people if they called me. I would still hang out with a lot of people that were in recovery. I still meditated. I still prayed. I still read my books. But I didn't see why I needed that, because that support system was tied to me not using a substance. And now that I got that under control, I don't need it anymore, right? And it was about maybe like 5 months before I started, telling myself those like stories about, you're so different, you've changed so much, people barely recognize you. That person who drank like a loner, like, you're gonna drink differently. And I did, actually. I did drink differently. I drank like a loner before, but then I drank like I was in a fraternity house, like this crazy nut. And so I'm convincing myself that this must be different, this is normal. My friends suddenly changed because now I'm drinking, I'm partying, they party this hard, this is normal. And it led right back into drugs, not that long after. And looking back, I can see the defining moment was leaving the supports. I didn't think that I was being supported. I just thought we all did this together, all at the same time. It took that moment for me to realize that listening to other people's struggles, supporting them in their struggles, gets me out of myself. Being a pillar in someone else's life is just as important as needing a pillar. And that as much as I want to be that I guess that cowboy image, that loner that I was as a kid, like I can't do that. I need people in my life, even if if I don't want them. I need people to tell me things that I don't want to hear, to support me even in things that aren't related to recovery. And I had to make recovery throughout my life, especially as things got busy, right? And after those mistakes, I realized it's not just the meetings, something else needs to happen. So when I went to college, there weren't any supports on college campuses, right? And it's fairly recovery hostile. People drink a lot. And so I was able to help with TCNJ, and I was able to help them start a collegiate recovery, which is support groups and outings, events. You can have meetings. It's whatever you want it to be. It's a peer-led group, a safe space that you can go to and talk about your struggles, just hang out, a place to study. Just having that space made it feel so much more comfortable. Just knowing there was people who understood what I was going through made it that much more bearable, right? I had struggles that I didn't think I could communicate, things that felt shameful to me. I wasn't a good student in elementary school or high school, and I felt shame about having to read fourth grade curriculum to learn how to use a semicolon. I still don't know how to use a semicolon, but I didn't do too bad in my writing class. But these are places that I can talk about these things. I don't have to hold things in. And so having a place that not only do you feel safe, people are going to support you, but you can be open about what you're going through, right? And sometimes, there's a lot of people that are in recovery that I can do that with, and a few people that aren't in recovery that I can do that with. Just because, with my mom, she might want to fix something. She wants to help. She's definitely the mother bear and just wants to wrap her arms around me. Whereas some of my friends will allow me to stumble. They'll walk alongside me, right? They don't hold the bike. They'll let it go and then catch while I'm falling. They let me feel what it's like to fall, or even skin my knee if I need to. And that's a huge. I need that, right? Because I get that voice that I was telling you, and when I'm by myself, I think I have the greatest ideas. So, what are some of the supports that are out there? For people who are in recovery, there are recovery community centers. There's a place like Living Proof, Prevention Links, Eva's Village. We're starting one down in Atlantic City. These are basically one-stop resource shops where you can have a meeting. You can it's beyond just your substances. It's life. It's how to get back on track. How I want to go to school. How do you get college ready? How do you get job ready? How maybe I need training before you can go to a job. Learn how to write a resume, mock interviewing. What's great about recovery centers is being peer-led. The community helps create what it is, right? Community is its people, and so if it's moving in a certain direction, that's what will happen. And so if what we need is a relationship group and supports, then they make it happen. If they need to create it, they create it, or if they find someone who's doing a great job at it all on their own, a program out there, an organization, how do we partner? It's better than the old, I know a place, here's the number, right? And I've been guilty of that myself, but sometimes it's not the number that I need, it's just somebody next to me saying no matter what happens, I'm here with you, and we got this. Because I need to know where my point of failure is. Maybe it's not calling them, but finding a ride, or doing the paperwork, or whatever it is, right? Some of these little things, these little shame points can really be stumbling blocks, right? There are also direct lines to treatment, IOP, Medicaid, insurance, you name it, right? The idea is whatever you need, you shouldn't have to go everywhere. There's so many supports out there. Let's us maintain the resources, right? And that way we can point you and work with you. Within some of those groups, there's a great program called Reconnections. Center for Family Services has a program called Reconnections, and it's for families of people who have struggled with addiction. And it's a support group. It's not an Al-Anon. From what I understand, there's educational pieces, there's workshops, there's actual guidelines of how to even walk through certain situations, deal with people who maybe are difficult early, late in recovery, whatever the case is, and then time for people not in recovery to talk about and like unload and have their own support, right, in the way that they need it. Yeah, and so those are amazing supports. I think the biggest thing though, is the accepting piece, and really, because everybody's different, there is never going to be like one set way to work with somebody, to support somebody through something. But you can never go wrong with being an ear, or creating a space that someone feels comfortable enough to share what's really going on, because the truth will come out, right? And I like the whole Hope Sheds Light thing, because what support really is someone telling you there's hope, right? Because if I'm reaching my hand out, if I'm saying I want to help you, it's because I believe you can be helped. No one's gonna, that would be a fool's game, or even cruel to believe that someone has no hope and you're going to help them anyway, right? I'm going to do this. It almost feels dishonest, right? And so it's that hope that helps change the belief that I don't have potential, right? That thing that I had when I was a kid, potential, right? This seemingly limitless, like, I don't know, void of possibility, right? I'm broken, I'm mashed, that's what the initial thought was. But having people help me, and I see it all the time when I work with people, that they believe I can be someone else, right? I can change who I am, and the potential grows again, right? I was talking to somebody today, it's almost like we all start off like these spheres, these perfect spheres, and then we like go down these different paths, and you start getting all these nicks and scrapes, and it's like, I don't look like a sphere anymore. I'm not like everybody else. I'm gonna hang out with the non-sphere looking people, right? And this is how the outcast piece comes in. But what's great about change and growth is that the struggle, the pain, is like the shaving, right? It's the heat, it's that pressure that helps round off those edges, that we become this nice sphere again. I mean, I still got a bunch of chips on me, some scratches, but I do believe that with support, there is always more opportunity and potential there, as long as I have a community. Communities help guide, they reflect what I am to them, my role in their life. They show, it shows me what I might need to change, but also helps me feel like I'm a part of something. Like, who am I to you? What role do I play in this community? And we get to share that whenever we help someone and support someone in their process. We get to play a role in their life and their story. And there's also studies that show that communities and support not only help with better coping, but it reduces anxiety, reduces depression, increases confidence in people. So there's a little science for you. There's your educational piece. But yeah, I would. All I'll end with this. I was thinking about support and like just kind of this image of like putting my hand out, and it's like when you think of support, you don't think it's a dirty word, right? You don't think it's like it's a positive thing. We believe it's a positive thing. We can only think of it as positive, yet it's so often that people won't support one another, or they won't help. They're okay with others supporting, but it almost feels like that same feeling of like giving that donation. I like the idea of helping, but like, not my money. Or if it's good enough cause. If you're already well on your way, that'll help, right? I'm not gonna invest in this person, right? And maybe this is just for me, right? It was just profound that seeing it almost like that exchange and really seeing my part, like support is the relationship between two people, even if it's just in passing. It's communicating that I care, that I believe, that there is a way out. And my role, my purpose is to show people that that is possible, that they're not just saying that in vain, that there's evidence that I lived a crazy life, didn't think I was going to live past 24, but here I am telling my story at, like, sharing an educational piece, right? I have something to offer people. It's possible, right? I have a job, I was unemployable. And so there's no one's too far down, right? Everyone's worth it. There's always new potential. Newness is always just around the corner. And that support, by offering hope, boom, sheds light, right? All right, guys. Thanks.